So programmatic and its part in the revolution. Exciting topic, one which we're going to get a number of different perspectives on here this morning. So hopefully we'll make it exciting for you. Revolution is the topic and programmatic is the sort of subtopic, and the impact of programmatic on our space. I think, thankfully for many of us in the room, programmatic is experiencing or has experienced sort of meteoric growth over the past few years, and particularly obviously in mobile. The real question I think to kick things off is, why has it gone so well over the past sort of 12 months or so? We understand there's a lot that has been accomplished. We've experienced tremendous growth in programmatic and mobile. What's worked, and then obviously we'll go on and talk about sort of where we are today and some of the things that we'll need to do to have it grow to be a much more material part of the digital advertising ecosystem. So I guess I'll start to my left. We're always first. You sat in the wrong seat. So what have we done right in the space from your perspective and from WeatherBug's perspective and programmatic over the past 12 months or so?
Well, I think just mobile in general has grown so quickly. There's probably not enough demand from an advertising standpoint. So I look at our business being weather. We know we're utility for the mobile space. So our inventory has shifted greatly on the mobile side and decreased because on the online side because people don't check the weather as much online. So I think it's just been an evolution of it, or a revolution of that. It had to be forced to happen, right? So, I think we, not just tooting our horn, I'm sure other people have done a good job as well, but I think we put ourselves in a good position to take advantage of the programmatic and the fill area because a direct sales team cannot meet the demand of that inventory. So as we've seen that grow from a few 100 million to almost 2 billion page views a month, I think those are some of the things that have definitely enhanced the programmatic. And also I think there's just been a lot of new technologies that have been developed over the past year or so. So you take a lot of your learnings and you can execute, you try new partners, try new things until you find the one that works best.
So to summarize that, the growth in mobile has been so great, your direct sales team hasn't kept up with that growth, not in a negative way, but it's created an opportunity because it's almost impossible, right? I mean, the growth is so strong, particularly in your space. You've got an opportunity to basically ensure that you have inventory that's going to be filled versus unsold from the direct sales.
That's right.
Elgin, off to you. I shouldn't have put two publishers in a row.
Yeah, it's all right, no. Because what I'm going to say is completely different. It's like yogurt. Programmatic is like yogurt, right? So if you follow Pinkberry, yummy yogurt. You go to Pinkberry, you go to Red Mango, and you look at those stores now, right? It's like, it used to have a line because yogurt was great, but now it's like, okay, well, I'll go there when I feel like eating yogurt. Now in Southern California, we have this franchise called Yogurtland, right? And Yogurtland is self-serve. So it's like human condition, human behavior. We enjoy the self-serve because we get to do what we want. So these guys on the buying side, they like self-serve, right? So they prefer Yogurtland versus Red Mango and Pinkberry. So I think what's happening is because we have the option for self-serve, on the buying side, they like that control. So human nature, we like self-serve, and we're all control freaks. And if you give that to the control freaks, then there's more money, right?
So the increase of control freaks in advertising
that's
is
right.
The growth of programmatic.
Absolutely.
Somehow tying in yogurt to that.
To yogurt, that's
Mark,
right. Yep.
As a self-serve yogurt fanatic yourself,
I was going to try to riff off this yogurt analogy, but I'm not sure I can follow that. Yes, we as fanatics like control, right? We like efficiency, we like performance, and that's why buyers like programmatic. Mark, as you mentioned, we've been doing these panels for I think 3.5 years at least, and when we used to them, I think we'd make a lot of excuses. And say, well, the addressability's not there, or the attribution's not there, or the formats kind of suck, and we're pretty candid about it. I feel a lot more comfortable now that a lot of those issues have been addressed, right? We have now, platform IDs for advertising like IDFA that are making addressability a reality. We've got, open solutions for cross-device attribution that are out there. And now we have standards for native formats. So I think a lot of those missing pieces have been addressed. And that's why in the past 12 months, we've seen a lot more traction in mobile, and we'll see a lot more in the future. So I'm looking forward to a year from now doing this panel and not necessarily having to talk about yogurt or these questions of where the gaps might be between mobile, our objectives for mobile and what the reality is.
That's great, thank you. Jennifer, Amnet's perspective.
Me?
And now.
Okay. So really from our perspective, we're seeing a shift in opportunity. So I think
Just talk through it.
Thank you. So where we've seen the shift on our side is really for the efficiency.
Here we go. You're gonna give you your own, actually.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Although that was intimate. No,
We like each other though.
he's married.
He doesn't have his wedding ring on because he plays with it when he's on panels.
You know
That
too
is a
much.
fact.
So really from where I've seen growth, certainly in efficiency, where we're starting to see the convergence of audience data, certainly scale, I think was something that was plaguing sort of mobile initially, scale of audience, so targeted scale. So those are some of the shifts that I've really seen over the past year. Certainly fantastic growth. Opportunity is out there for all of the buyers. I like your yogurt analogy.
Thank you. Jen, what's that?
You want the yogurt answer or the non-yogurt answer?
You can go yogurt, you can go any other fast food metaphor.
I'll do a bit of both. So we have seen tremendous growth in mobile programmatic over the past couple of years. And I think it is due to the massive and rapid growth of the ecosystem overall, but I really think that there's been a lot of sort of fundamental infrastructure that's matured and been put into place over the past couple of years that's been able to allow the buy side to finally, act upon programmatic buying at scale, right? So the first wave had to be about the supply side coming online, making great inventory available programmatically. I think the second wave was about data coming online, whether it be through more traditional channels or new and great mobile data that can have a great impact on mobile consumer behavior. With the two of those now being broadly available to programmatic buyers, it's made a big difference in affecting the growth rates.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I definitely agree with the foundation kind of being set from a data and content standpoint, and that enabling us as buyers to better educate our clients as to the value of programmatic, and particularly mobile as an extension of what we've already been doing in display. I think that another thing that really contributed to the growth is the very early years of programmatic. I mean, because it lacked, I guess, the same accelerated contribution from publishers that we're seeing now with mobile. It really had this stigma of being a DR-only platform, a DR-only tool, and as an agency, that's really where we kind of piggybacked on the idea of programmatic, and it was really for our performance marketing accounts. I think now that the supply side has really ramped up in contributing content and embracing programmatic as a way to optimize yield, I think buyers can change that stigma and really present programmatic tools as a more holistic solution that's inclusive of all channels. And it might sound like we're a bit behind, but I think that when you go down the chain and the buying process and the buying dynamic, clients are typically the last ones to hear about the latest and greatest, and then as an agency, it's our job to kind of present these ideas as great solutions. But typically, what really drives their bottom lines are more traditional dollars, more TV dollars. So it becomes kind of a way that we can slowly steer the ship, and I think we started to see that. And again, I think mobile kind of coming in the second wave behind display has really helped it to gain some traction a bit quicker and become a bigger part of our strategy.
That's great. I mean, I think I can summarize a number of the points. Companies like Adelphic and Turn were sort of pioneers in enabling the sort of self-serve, right? Enabling, the agencies and trading desks want to buy mobile, but they want to buy the way they've always bought. They want access to the same data and audience. They want to be able to do have the same attribution solutions. And for a long time, it was sort of, no cookies, no money, right? Sorry. And I think as those solutions from publishers have been enabled, as inventory's increased, the buying platforms grew more sophisticated, and now it really feels like, as we see the growth coming from the trading desks and agencies, it's really an exciting point in time in the industry as those solutions are essentially there, and things can really take off. I think one of those things that those self-serve buyers like to we're going to carry the yogurt thing all the way through,
It's
by the
all
way.
good. Rodeo's good.
Want is access to data, audience, and more broadly speaking. What is it, and from a publisher's perspective, from Elgin or Mike, what is it that you're able or willing to provide? How valuable do you see your data as contributing to the growth of programmatic in your space and the value of your inventory?
Sure.
And you're both, I'm sure you have unique data assets amongst.
That's right. And a lot of times when we think of data and first-party data, we think of a registration wall, collecting email address, birth year and gender and whatnot. I mean, that's great data, right? Great first-party data. But, what's unique for TuneIn is, we're radio, and it's, we have over 100,000, terrestrial radio stations that we aggregate from over 200 countries, and then we have over 4 million podcasts. So when you combine someone, let's say, listening to some obscure hip-hop station out of South Africa, right, but they live in New York, right, and then on top of that, they're listening to whatever podcast, and we also were passing location, and so understanding certain things and the kind of music that people listen to, and there's a lot of data out there. If you listen to a certain hip-hop station or you listen to hip-hop music, you can create profiles, right? And so
Are you packaging that information either for direct sales or for programmatic buyers?
That's right, that's right. And so that's important for us, right? Because that creates value for our impressions. And when you have a lot of impressions and a lot of global impressions, right? And even if you're listening to a station out of South Africa, but you're in New York, we want to be able to target that New York user, right? And not assume that person who's listening to a South African radio station lives in South Africa, right? Or somewhere in Africa or Northern Africa, wherever, but to understand that they're in New York. So that's valuable data, and we can monetize on that.
Mike, you have that type of data, and you're releasing into the wild on programmatic?
So with being a weather property that long and device ID,
we do like that.
We do like that. The one thing we're not passing all the time, and it depends on if direct sales gets involved. Our most valuable piece of data is our live weather data and all those pieces. So I wouldn't say we never would, but in certain occasions we think it could work in a programmatic state.
So in a more controlled programmatic environment.
Yeah, because and that's it's just what makes us different than everybody else, because we have all our own sensors out there, and it's all live data. So I think that's where we're trying to figure out: is it good to put it into the programmatic at 100%, whatever, or certain pieces of that data? I know, man, you want it. How much you willing to pay?
Well, that's actually a good. It's a great segue, right?
But it's also what pieces are of value, because people think weather triggering is just weather triggering, but there's certain elements to weather triggering that makes more sense than others.
But Bruce has clients that would love that.
They would.
Right?
They would.
And the question is, how do you get it to them? How do you get it to them efficiently? And you've got a direct sales team that I'm sure could do that. But I think one of the biggest developments in the mobile programmatic space over the past year has been the advent of programmatic direct, or deal ID.
Yep.
Or automated guaranteed, or we were joking in the back room a little bit, there's 8 different words to
Detroit colloquialism.
define, yeah, that programmatic direct solution. Yeah, we know that, yeah. But if you could get that data and your sales team, there's this misconception that as an exchange or sitting programmatically that we want, publishers, you sit over there and buyers, you sit over here and never mix them. And it's actually quite the opposite. We want to get you in front of buyers on our platform, whether it be the platforms or their clients, and say, look, strike a deal. You want access to his valuable data, package it however you want.
On those two, we would.
And Bruce, is that, how much do you see that as being a driver of what you're going to be spending on behalf of your clients in mobile?
I think it's a huge driver. I think one of the common themes in many of my conversations with publishers that we're talking about deal IDs with is the idea of decoupling. I think it's huge for buyers. And when we talk about especially consolidating behind a programmatic platform, I mean, from a buyer standpoint, yes, we want to get access to better inventory. We want to be able to ingest third-party insights, very much so first-party insights. But the idea of publisher data is important, and I think publishers, have gone a long way in allowing access to that data through a programmatic channel like a deal ID. But the ultimate vision from a buyer is, I would like to manage multiple inventory sources with data like, at the top of the list, viewable ads. Ads that are going to be, impactful in experiential way, with rich media. And also, I want to be able to combine different data sets. I mean, I want to be able to target someone listening to hip hop while driving in the rain and go get some self-serve yogurt. These are things that I need to be able to put together for my client, because right now we're still living in a very fragmented world when it comes to data. On one side, and then on the third-party side, we're living in oversaturation. Especially when it comes to cookies and display. So clients, we want data. We want to be able to identify partners that have unique and valuable data to our business objectives. And I think that what we haven't seen, or what's happening slowly, is publishers being willing to kind of let go of that proprietary data that they've held so tightly for so long. I think they need to realize that content is still important. Content is still, a huge factor in our planning, but audience is becoming more important, and we need to be able to activate that audience at scale.
Now, publishers are more open to passing data, I think, now, right? So, and there's tons of data. So for you guys, and when you're presenting to your clients like AT&T, how do you package that? I mean, again, number one, how do you make sense of the data? Because again, there's tons of data. Yeah. But how do you make sense of that data and then tell your clients, this is the data that you want to go after, and it may cost a little bit more than this particular package that has less data, but we're going to do this. But how do you sell that to say, hey, AT&T, you need to spend more money because this data is very valuable, and you're going to get the engagement and all the other KPIs that they want to measure against, but it's worth it. How do you get that message across?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a gap between who advertisers are targeting and who's targeting them, right? And it's a very tall mountain to climb, right? So I think there's a lot of testing going on right now. I think we're trying to educate clients as to different trends that they may not have been aware of, at no fault of their own, but because we've been using kind of repurposed models so often to try to identify which users within the digital ecosystem are the most valuable. And then on top of that, we've been using intent data and demographic data that's very, very cookie based. So there really hasn't been like a holistic profile of the type of user that we really want to convert. And when I say convert, it's not landing on a homepage or landing on a conversion page. It's really the type of user that you want to be a customer of yours over the long term. It's about value over the long term. So I think that we're still, again, in a testing phase. I think that when it comes to digital, and certainly mobile is a huge extension of this, we want exclusivity, especially speaking in programmatic terms. So if I can go to my client and say, here's a unique data set, and it's just for AT&T or just for Marriott, and I'm going to activate it programmatically, whether I'm in a deal ID or I'm in the open market, it has a better chance of backing into whatever cost per click, cost per acquisition that I'm netting out. So that's the first thing we look for. And then the second thing is just something that's a bit unique, a bit different that we hadn't been able to get through offline measuring tools, and we haven't been able to get through this cookie profile of a user that we've repurposed over and over again. And that could certainly be weather trending, or it could be, what kind of musical taste somebody has. Anything to kind of separate our clients and, advertisers from the competitive field usually strikes a chord, and it's usually something that we're able to test, and if we have the right testing methodology, we're able to scale. And when that happens, we are willing to give you some good money for your data.
One more. I'm sorry. I got one question real quick. So, on the mobile side, right? When we look at user acquisition, we look at the lifetime value of the user, right?
Yep.
And that's very important for mobile first UA, strategies. But on the branding side, do you guys look at a mobile lifetime in that perspective? Right, so when you're going after, and you're going after, mobile devices and trying to advertise on the mobile devices, are you looking at the LTV perspective at all, or is it just?
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can, why not? I mean, we see brand exposure as having certainly having an impact on someone's, willingness to become a customer. It's just, a little bit further up the funnel. So we want to learn from that as well. I mean, if we can, put together an infrastructure for a client that, kind of tells a multi-touch attribution story that connects mobile with online display, then yeah, we want to be able to measure the exposure that particular user had from a branding standpoint and see if we can replicate it, and if it leads to higher quality of customer that's going to be a repeat customer. There's all these things that we're looking at. We're not just looking at the bottom of the funnel.
It sounds like we're sort of re-emphasizing a number of the topics that came up on the panel before us, right? It's audience, it's data. It's not about CTR necessarily as much as it is about sort of knowing who you're advertising to and the impact that advertising is having on them and being able to measure that. Mark, you guys, first and third party data is important. I think that's sort of a given. And access to it is greater now than it has been, although not as great as it needs to be going forward. Mark and Jen Lum too, you guys have sort of made a living using data in mobile in the open marketplace, not in a deal ID sort of one-to-one, but in the open exchange space. How much of an impact has that had on the value of inventory? How much more data are you able to enable today versus a year ago? What's the trajectory there? What's important from a data perspective?
Well, I'll give the turn point of view because we really are a multi-channel DSP, right? We started in desktop. We have a tremendous, you talked about almost a glut of audience data available on the desktop. Relatively on the mobile side, that ecosystem isn't as mature, but that's changing rapidly. And it's changing rapidly because now we have a lot of different providers that can bridge data from desktop to mobile. And so the mobile data ecosystem is being significantly enriched by that. At the same time, we do support deal IDs,
Sure.
And we work with lots of publishers to set those up in ways that our clients can see value in. And so whether it's a publisher that is not willing to decouple their audience from their data and wants to only provide it in a premium private marketplace type environment, or whether it's a third-party source that we're able to layer across all inventory, we're definitely seeing that brands especially have the same appetite for using data to make decisions and gain insights in mobile as they did on the desktop. And I think that's one of the fundamental differences between a brand, a sort of an auto or CPG or financial services, and a mobile endemic, mobile first advertiser, where they're trying to target for a different objective and they're trying to measure a different outcome, and it's much more about the audience than it is about, say, that user lifetime value calculation.
Right. Jen?
Yeah, at Adelphic, we've spent a lot of time with various data partners over the past few years, being able to understand how to leverage different data sets and ultimately tie and link them to the user profiles that we're building within our platform. And then to provide marketers who are using our platform the ability to layer that data across any of the inventory partners that we have access to. The one other comment that I would add is, from the buying perspective, it is, as a first step, critically important to have access to data to be able to find and define your audiences. But going beyond that, with Adelphic being a buying platform, additional data, even if it's not the specified targeting data, is important for us to be able to have visibility to make the right decisions on behalf of the marketers in real time. So the more data that you can surface to us and make available to us to make those great decisions, the better performance we're going to be able to deliver on behalf of our advertisers, and the more money we're going to be able to send your way.
Can I add another comment, Mark?
You may.
And I'm going to actually throw this over to you. So I'm imagining there are a bunch of publishers out there in the audience. Maybe you haven't embraced programmatic fully, or you're thinking about it. We talked about the value of data and how that can create, higher yield and higher value. Also transparency. That's a form of data, right? Like being clear about who the publisher is. Do you guys have any metrics on the premium that a publisher can earn by layering, whether it's location, signal, or being transparent? Is there something we can share with the audience to help them understand that that's something they can get more value from?
Yeah, transparency is an interesting one, right? We have a lot of visibility into that. And there's this notion that, if an impression is worth $2 blind, that it's worth $4 transparent. And in fact, it's probably worth $6 transparent, and it's worth nothing blind to many buyers. To the buyers that care about transparency, it doesn't have less value, it has no value. Right? And that's actually, over the past few years, one of the bigger learning experiences for particularly premium publishers. The absence of, when you take away transparency in a premium publisher and you don't provide data, then it looks no different than some nondescript app that no one knows about. Yet you still command high premiums because that's how much you could sell it for elsewhere. It feels like we're over that hump for the most part. We still experience it and we understand it, right? But transparency, and I think by providing the tools, both at the exchange level and the buy side level, to be able to say to those publishers, like, so you want control, right? Which is what it's all about.
That's why
Great.
we have Deal ID.
Right, so we now have have had the ability for you, whether it be private marketplaces to a select set of buyers, whether it be Deal ID to a single buyer, you now have the control to get access to demand programmatically and use your data. And because your transparency is a huge one. And particularly, I would say 2 years ago it wasn't that big because brand spend was much smaller and brand spend drives transparency. But Amnet's not buying, MEC's not buying blind inventory, right? You want to know where your clients won't allow it. They want to know where it is. But I think what's also interesting, and it's a good segue into sort of what is, what's valuable from a transparent standpoint in mobile particularly. How would you define, or is it defined any differently in mobile? I'm sorry, it's sort of premium transparent inventory versus display.
So certainly from our side, I think the most important thing is understanding how transparency can help the brands. So where we're focusing our efforts in mobile specifically is understanding the signals we can ingest and how we can turn those into targetable audiences. So I think lat long is incredibly important, understanding the location of the device and how that relates to your overall strategy for your brand.
On lat long, by the way, we see on average about between a 40 to 50% increase on an impression with and without, sometimes considerably more.
We're willing to pay.
And trending
right.
up.
Yeah.
Right.
Certainly, I think that's the most important signal and probably, I would think, the easiest to transmit. And then we're also, obviously, we're not forgetting content or we're not forgetting rich creative environments. But really, I think formats are incredibly important once we're talking about having that location information. How can we engage that user in a different way? I don't think it's all about just the banner on the bottom of the app anymore. So I think we're really trying to understand how to combine all of those signals into targetable audiences.
That's great. Formats, I'm going to pick up on that. Actually, I'm going to pick up on a few things. We'll sort of do a little bit of a rapid fire. We've got 6 or 7 minutes left on sort of key drivers of programmatic and mobile in the next 12 months and beyond. And there's a number of buzzwords that fortunately are more than buzzwords these days. These things are available and growing at scale. But just quickly, we go down the panel. How much of a role will video play in the growth of mobile programmatic in the next 12 months? WeatherBug, video important?
It is. I wish I had more of it. So we don't have a lot of video. So, but yeah, I definitely think
there's not a lot of video demand, you mean?
No, there's video demand. We just don't have people don't want to watch the weather; they want to watch destruction of
I'm
weather.
talking about video ads, not
Yes.
video weather.
Yeah, but just going along that way, we don't have a lot of like pre-roll video,
Not
but
pre-roll.
but we also are very careful of the user experience. So the only thing we run is user initiated. So we're seeing some growth, but most of what we're being asked for is pre-roll
Pre-roll.
video, not video banners.
Elgin?
Yeah.
Big contributor this year?
I mean, we're music, right? And so how do you incorporate video into something that's predominantly music? So, we're constantly thinking about that, but we cannot ignore the fact that all the budget and what advertisers and what the agencies are thinking about is video, right? So it's like, okay, we've got all this great data, but with this data and all this beautiful targeting and this and that, I don't want to put a boring banner. I'd much rather put like a really nice 15-second or 30-second, and it pleases the clients, and there's just more money, right? So we're looking at ways to grab that money, right? And we're always thinking about it.
Mark, it's big.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for our business. We have a robust video business on the desktop. It's growing on mobile. We have partners that provide us with that inventory. Our platform supports it. And I think I'm pretty encouraged by the fact that we've gotten this far through the panel. We've got 5 minutes left, and we didn't really throw banners under the bus. Usually when we do these panels, we all sit around and go, well, banners suck, so, no one's going to spend. The reality is, like, we've moved on, right? We've all got high-speed devices in our pockets with large screens. It's a really awesome canvas for brands now, and we're talking about video. So, giddy up, let's do it.
It's huge. There's such a difference from past years where, you're right, we talked about all the things that sucked and why it wasn't going to work. Well, we didn't, but others were challenging us, I would say. But you're right, video works in mobile. It's a fantastic consumer experience if done right. A big driver for Amnet, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, we are seeing a ton more demand and obviously finding ways in which we can execute those formats. Even long-form video is becoming of more importance, even within a mobile device. So identifying ways in which we can sort of self-serve what we want when we want it with
He's a control freak.
the vehicle we need it in.
And specifically programmatically.
Yes, absolutely.
Yep, great. Jen,
We love video.
all in?
All in. Video is the fastest growing ad format for us at Adelphic. To all the publishers in the room, we'd love to have access to more premium video inventory, especially data-rich premium video inventory. But we're seeing huge growth across all verticals.
I think it depends. I think that video is going to be huge this year. Actually, that I'll say. But I think that what we see is when publishers start to contribute what they consider to be more premium types of content within programmatic channels, it comes with a premium price, and that's understandable. But I think that between the buyer and the seller, I think we have to figure out what that price is, because there's kind of a new checks and balances system with the open market. And while we don't buy a lot of transparent inventory, there are a lot of tools out there that are, allow us to, kind of filter out unwanted content, unwanted pages from that, open, non-transparent environment. And like I said earlier, I mean, clients are getting more comfortable with programmatic. I think that as these tools become more sophisticated, they'll get more comfortable with, non-transparency, but transparency as provided by a third party, and I think video is gonna really be a huge factor in that. We're going to be, looking to purchase mobile video. We're going to be looking to target audiences. Content is important, but it's only as important as how much you're going to charge, advertisers for it. And if you're coming from the mentality of, a traditional broadcast type of approach, then I think there are some publishers that might price themselves out of market.
Thank you. One last sort of high-level question. It's more of a statement. I want to get your reaction to it, sort of yes, no, or maybe. And it's because of the unique nature of mobile advertising and the device and the consumer interaction and sort of how close you are to the consumer when you do reach them. The statement is that programmatic in mobile will have a far greater impact on the advertising ecosystem, the digital advertising, than programmatic in display has over time. Agree with that? Disagree with that? Mike?
Yeah, I think it.
Well, we know where your uses are.
Yeah, I think it will. I think a lot of lessons learned. So.
Elgin, you on board with that?
Absolutely. I think just by the true nature of where the impressions are going. I'm just a curious guy, so I talk to like a lot of publishers out
Picking
there.
up on that, yeah.
You know, and it's like, hey, yeah. So I'm like, hey, like, you know, how's your mobile versus desktop, blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, they're like 2 years ago, yeah, mobile's this much and desktop is that much. But now you ask them now, it's like, oh my gosh, over 50, 60% of our usage is now mobile. So just by the pure nature of usage and users going to mobile, it's just natural that we're going to see more.
So is the question, is programmatic
You're
more
the display
disruptive?
guy coming into mobile.
Yeah.
I need you to commit to mobile is going to have a bigger impact than programmatic and mobile is going to have a bigger impact than programmatic in display.
And you know,
over
I
time.
like to agree with you
Sometimes.
most of the time, except when we're negotiating.
Unanimity, it doesn't have to be unanimous. Look, I got 2 down on a panel. If I asked this 2 years ago,
So
I'd have been thrown off the stage.
I'm going to go contrarian here. I mean, I think programmatic is very disruptive, and in desktop there was more to disrupt. That was a very entrenched industry, lots of ad networks, lots of end-to-end, practices, a lot of folks hanging on to their data as a proprietary asset. You still see it today, whereas mobile has emerged kind of in parallel with programmatic, and so it's not going to be as disruptive. It's going to be more just in line. So I'm taking
Not
the
as
contrarian
disruptive,
view.
but as impactful is more on a go-forward basis. The ability to interact with the consumer and find audience in this environment.
Yeah, I think it'll have the same impact. It's game changing, but I don't see it as being dramatically different in mobile than desktop.
From my perspective, I think I'd have to agree with Mark. I think we're seeing the users are there. I mean, so that's where the audiences are. That's where they're engaging with brands. But I don't know that we're going to see a larger impact on programmatic specifically than we did with display. So I love the fact that we have the availability we need programmatically within mobile, or at least we're starting to get to the place where we have what we need. I just don't know that it would be like life-changing.
Jen, you're going to counter that. I'm confident with your answer.
All right. No, I think the potential upside and the ultimate impact of mobile programmatic is undeniable. So from a consumer behavior standpoint, mobile programmatic is really the first opportunity for marketers to learn how to engage consumers throughout the waking day. That's extremely valuable. And even when the mobile device isn't being used as the primary device, it's still being used as a companion device. So as we move from mobile into cross-screen, the ability for marketers and brands to understand how to reach and engage consumers throughout the waking day is extremely powerful. And once we see measurement and attribution come online at greater scale, I think in being able to close the loop reliably, it's going to be the most powerful tool that a marketer has.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be more impactful. I think it would be hard to be more impactful than what happened with display when programmatic kind of first got introduced. But I think I'm just waiting for the day when we stop comparing the two, because I think eventually we're not going to have mobile and desktop. And even now, I always pose the question of what is mobile? I mean, if someone's sitting on their couch watching TV with their smartphone, is that really mobile?
That's a great answer.
And how do you compare that with someone who's out and about? In a shopping mentality. So I think that hopefully the lines will blur, and hopefully we will be looking at programmatic as a digital activation platform, and the impact will grow holistically as more channels get introduced.
That's fantastic. And just in wrapping up, and thank you guys all for your comments. In preparation for this panel, we had a conversation. I actually spoke to Mark beforehand and said, I'd like to make this interesting. I want to ask different questions. I want to get the audience, sort of invigorated and what are those questions that we're going to ask that's really going to will get people engaged? And Mark made the observation, and it couldn't be more true, right? The questions are actually all the same questions we were asking 3 years ago and 2 years ago. The biggest and the most exciting part of this is the answers are completely different. And what's exciting is that, right, is our ability to deliver on the promise that was just promised 3 years ago and has become much more a reality is what's exciting about the growth of programmatic and mobile. And I thank each of you for your contribution and your thoughts today.